Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, the Habs dominate the Devils in New Jersey. 5 different goal scorers, a big game from Samuel Montembeault. I'll have your recap and more inside today's show.
Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 790 of Locked On Canadiens. This episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Remember to make every moment more with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. I am your host. I am Scott Matla. I am flying solo today before I abandon my co-host to go to Jamaica for a week, assuming the weather, knock on wood, all of that lets me out of the city of Buffalo here. And folks, when I say the vibes are good tonight, the vibes are very good tonight here. And thank you so much for listening wherever you're getting your podcast, or if you're watching my current reaction here on YouTube. Thank you for subscribing there as well. Let's jump right into things. The Montreal Canadiens beat the New Jersey Devils 5-2 in what was an entertaining game. It was a lopsided game that the Devils probably should have blown the Canadiens out in. They had 40 shots on goal. The Canadiens had 18. The Canadiens won 39% of faceoffs, went 0 for 2 on the power play, had 6 penalties, had 28 blocked shots. In case you're wondering where the difference in this game came from, it was that the Canadiens did everything they could to make Samuel Montembeault's night as easy as possible, and they still got pounded with shots. But Samuel Montembeault went stone cold Steve Austin, double birds to the New Jersey Devils, and just stole this game for them. The good news is everyone's talking the tank and this and that. It's one game. We're going to analyze what's in front of us right now. Here are the facts. 5 different goal scorers tonight: Justin Barron, Jonathan Kovacevic, Nick Suzuki, Rem Pitlick, and Mike Matheson. 2-point night for Nick Suzuki, a goal and an assist. Goal and assist from Mike Matheson. 2 assists for Christian Dvorak in this game, who I thought quietly played well. But the Devils are, as Laura and I talked about in the other show, a very deep team who has the ability to kind of overwhelm when they need to. And the Canadiens played this game shorthanded again, and we will get into that later on in the show here. I gotta say, to stop a 2-game skid where they didn't necessarily play badly, but got outplayed by skilled opponents, this is like if they flipped the script in that Toronto game or that Carolina game where they were right there until they weren't. In this game, they stayed right there. They took advantage of the Devils' defensive miscues or lulls in play there to beat Vitek Vanacek 4 times, once into the empty net. And I think nothing highlights this better. Justin Barron's goal was great. Nick Suzuki with an absolutely filthy backhand pass there. Rafael Harvey-Pinard with a great pass to get all that started, and he just continues to produce points. This is an RHP Stan podcast at this point. Opens the scoring. Jonathan Kovacevic's goal, I think, would have been the nicest goal scored by the Canadiens tonight, and we will get to what is the nicest goal scored by the Canadiens tonight. Kovacevic's goal was all Jesse Ylönen getting a leading pass from Mike Matheson, getting deep into the offensive zone and not behind the net, in an area where he can still operate and find passing lanes. And he pivots, absolutely shatters someone's ankles, feeds a streaking Kovacevic in the slot. Kovacevic beats Vitek Vanacek cleanly, which love to see that. He's not an offensive defenseman. That's not his game. His game is being that solid, steady defensive presence next to the more offensively inclined Jordan Harris or Arbor Xhekaj in situations. And seeing him score that goal was great. And if you haven't seen Martin St. Louis trying his best to keep it together on the bench, I clipped it. It's up on my Twitter account. I don't know why he's laughing in this situation. I'm not really inclined to figure that out. That's not my job. I thought it was funny because he's smirking. Everyone's smiling and having a good time. Vibes are good. And you know the vibes are good when the fourth Canadiens goal, Christian Dvorak brings the puck in, gets it over to Evgeny Dadonov. Dadonov back to Dvorak. Dvorak back up to Dadonov, who is on the left side of the goal, across to Rem Pitlick, who buries it top shelf. At a certain point, if you were the New Jersey Devils, this game has not gone your way, and you know it's definitely not going your way when you get effing posterized by Evgeny Dadonov and Rem Pitlick. Rem Pitlick, a very useful player. Evgeny Dadonov, useful in the right situation. If you're getting put on a poster by them in this game, you should probably pack it in for the night. Got one back. The Devils get one back on the power play, and they're pushing and they're pushing and they're pushing. They pull Vanacek with 16 minutes played in the period here. The Christian Dvorak wins a draw clean, and Matheson just hurls it the length of the ice to seal the game here. It's everything you want to see in a bounce back game here. And I look at some of these performances. Nick Suzuki played 19:27. Dvorak played 18:23. Raphael Harvey-Pinard played 19 minutes. Josh Anderson played 18 minutes there. Mike Matheson played 27 minutes in this game. He played almost 10 minutes in the first period alone. Stat line, 1 goal, 1 assist, +3, 1 shot on goal, 2 blocks, 2 giveaways, 1 takeaway. 53 seconds on the power play, 3:21 shorthanded. David Savard played 23:44. Samuel Montembeault posted 950 save percentage. Honestly, what more could you ask for in a game? You had your trade pieces playing well. Dadonov, Christian Dvorak played well. Mike Hoffman got an assist on Nick Suzuki's goal here. Like, everything you could ask for in a game that they probably shouldn't have won, but they did, happened. Young guys got points. Justin Barron, Nick Suzuki, Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Jesse Ylonen, Jonathan Kovacevic. All the young pieces got points. Even their veterans who got points got in a way that makes sense. It was really good to see a standout performance from Mike Matheson here. I know we've all kind of been waiting for him to break out of that shell a little bit, and he's doing so now. I think he's found his stride, and I know he's going to have bad games in here. That's a fact of life. But Mike Matheson playing as well as he did in this game, he was a leader on that ice. David Savard leads in a different way. David Savard is there to give up his body. He cleaned out Miles Wood after Miles Wood smacked Samuel Montembeault's stick out of his hands again. Rightly or wrongly, I'm glad to see someone stick up for the goaltender here, and that's an important factor. Matheson led with his play. The Canadiens' defense is so different when he plays, and I am really glad to see that because apparently Jeff Petry's on the market. That maybe touch on in the trade deadline segment later on in the show here, but we're going to shift gears a bit here. We're going to talk about the bad news coming out of this game, and that's Joel Armia. That's injuries, but it's not all bad, and I'll explain why coming up next. But first, as I said earlier, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, and the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download the FanDuel app, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you are a new customer, you can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you got to do is just download the Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Bet on the money line, point scorers, threes drained, and if you're feeling froggy, put them all together in the same game parlay and increase your winnings. And guess what? If you don't win, you can get your money back with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. And remember, make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA, and us here at Locked On. And as always, please make sure you are betting and gambling responsibly. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. I am solo hosting tonight. I am Scott Matla. You can follow me on Twitter at Scott Matla if you're watching on YouTube. There is a nice little graphic that I've managed to stick between my hands here once I've learned what direction to face on this camera here. For those who are listening on the podcast, sorry, you should subscribe on YouTube, though. That's where the real fun is. we got to get down to the bad side of this game here. And I guess the bad side is, they lost, or they won, I should say, but they lost ground in the tank standings. We're not going to do that because this is a positive episode here. We are happy about the way things went tonight. Joel Armia played about 2 minutes in this game. He's left. According to Eric Engels, he just wasn't feeling well, would not return. We know Kirby Dach is still out with whatever illness is bothering him. And if it's hit Joel Armia, well, quite frankly, that's unfortunate because would have been nice for him to potentially get into the win column here as well. However, there is some good news here. And as many of you know, the Laval Rocket are my main coverage outside of the Montreal Canadiens at what I do at Habs Eyes on the Prize. There is a replacement they can bring up here. And I know a lot of people are going to ask to see Anthony Richard again, which fair. Anthony Richard has played really well here. They're kind of lacking other forward options here. You have Nate Schnarr. You have pieces. You have Lucas Condata. However, the name that I'm looking at here who has earned it, and this is a season about earning and getting to see what you have in your prospects, is former Blainville Boisbriand and Armada forward and Royun Narunda Husky teammate, I believe, of Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Joël Teasdale. We're going to replace Joel with Joel, different accents and such. And I think this is not only the right move in terms of giving prospects a chance that they've earned, it also makes sense. In 37 games this year, Joël Teasdale has 18 goals, 9 assists, 27 points, 21 penalty minutes, -1. Started the season really rough. He was coming off another unfortunate injury. And the year before that, he was coming off an injury. He lost his entire, what would have been his first year of professional hockey due to a serious knee injury. And I wrote about this for Eyes on the Prize, and I swear I didn't know that this was going to be a thing that happened in this game. If I did, teams, you should pay me to predict who's going to get injured for you. I look at this, and Joël Teasdale is playing the best hockey of his career right now. He is a force on every shift. He's forechecking hard, creating turnovers, and scoring goals or producing points off of them. It reminds me a lot of what got Michael Pezzetta into the NHL lineup last year. Yeah, the team was terrible and whatnot, but his spirit is what got him into the lineup. And Joël Teasdale is playing in such a way that I think he fits on that fourth line. He has chemistry with Belzile. He's played with Michael Pezzetta before. He's played with Jesse Ylönen before. He's played with Raphael Harvey-Pinard. He's played with Corey Schueneman. He's played with Justin Barron. He's played with these guys. There was not as much of a learning curve here. Yes, the NHL speed is a little bit different. He's not the fastest guy on the ice, but he's stocky. He stands 6 foot, barely, 220 pounds. He's a bull. He's not Josh Anderson in terms of physicality, but he makes his presence felt around the net in a way that leads itself to creating points here. And I look at this and I go, this is a guy that you should give a chance to. We talk a lot about how rebuilding is important to analyze your prospects and take stock of your cupboard. We've said that a lot on this show, and I stand by that. It is very important that they have they have their ducks in a row, so to speak here. Giving Joël Teasdale that chance, even if it's for a game, well, Joel Armia recovers. For all we know, Christian Dach, not even Christian Dvorak, Kirby Dach may be back for the next game, but he wasn't traveling with the team. And Sean Monahan is trapped somewhere in the 7th dimension. We don't know quite where he is at this point or where he is in terms of his recovery and whatnot. Why not give him a shot? He's second on the team in goal scoring behind Anthony Richard. And I would understand if they call up Anthony Richard and give him that shot. Sure, we know that he can play at the NHL level. We've seen that speed. But this is about rewarding guys who are playing well. And this is not to say that Anthony Richard is not playing well. He's playing fantastically. That's not to take anything away from the Rockets' leading scorer and one of the best players in the AHL. This is to give an opportunity to a prospect who had several years of his career hampered by injuries and taken away from him, but has still found a way to produce not at a point per game clip, but just below that. 18 points in 26 games, 28 and 44, and now 27 and 37. He's not meant to be a big point producing guy, but he fits the mold of what a modern fourth liner should do in this NHL. They can forecheck hard, chip in the odd goal. And I think on a personal level, it's going to mean a lot for Joel Teasdale. He's from, Quebec. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the city name because I don't want to offend anybody in our listenership here. He's earned that opportunity, just like Raphael Harvey-Pinard earned that opportunity. Like Alex Belzile has earned and has seized that opportunity. It's homegrown talent that they've developed this guy in the AHL. He was signed as an undrafted free agent. They did not draft him like Harvey-Pinard or Xavier Simoneau or a Jake Evans or a Michael Pezzetta who's come up. This was an undrafted free agent that they signed. And for good reason. Memorial Cup, it was a huge performer for the Huskies and for the Armada. Made sense. And then obviously injuries took a toll on what was his development. And the fact that he's gotten himself back on track in this way, he's pacing for a career year in the AHL this year. And that's what you want to see. It's about to get really crowded there, and he's trying to make himself stand out. If I'm Kent Hughes and I'm looking at Armia, I tell him, go home, rest. We're going to call someone up and make that Joel Teasdale. Because I believe coming up, the Habs schedule doesn't get much easier, unfortunately. Well, which we knew that. We talked about that last week. They play the Flyers on Friday night, and then they play the Senators at home on Saturday. Two teams outside the playoff race with an opportunity there to give Joel Teasdale a shot. You don't have to go all out. You don't have to play in both games, and maybe you have guys back for Saturday. Maybe you have them back for Friday, and you rest them one night or the other. You figure it out. You just got to figure out a way to reward the strong efforts and play of these players here. And I'd really like to see Joel Teasdale into this lineup here. I think he's earned that opportunity. And I think it would mean a lot to him as someone who grew up probably watching, the last parts of the heyday of the Canadiens. And if I'm not going to look at his age because I don't want to feel old myself, if it's not Joel Teasdale, I assume it's going to be Anthony Richard. I would be shocked if it's anyone besides either one of those guys. There might be a trade. Who knows? This podcast could be out of date by the time you listen to it. I hope it is not, because I hope you are here for all the up-to-date stuff on the Montreal Canadiens. And guess what? The Canadiens were almost involved in the Ryan O'Reilly trade. How? Well, I will explain that to you coming up next. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens. It is just I, Scott Matla, tonight. The active stick, Laura Saba, has the night off because that is what good co-hosts do and whatnot. We're going to shift it into the trade deadline here again. There was some interesting news that came out during the intermission of the Canadiens game against the Devils. Arpon Basu was talking to Dan Robertson, who also did a phenomenal job calling this Habs game again. It's a treat. Miss him now that he's in Winnipeg with John Liu, but an absolutely phenomenal call of the game. But to the main point, right now, there were a couple of big facts. There was something more than a broken foot hampering Sean Monahan, according to Arpon Basu, which I think anyone who has paid attention to this entire situation would go, yeah, that tracks, that makes sense. But the biggest part of this was the Canadiens wanted to fit into the Ryan O'Reilly trade. Not in acquiring Ryan O'Reilly, because quite frankly, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. However, they wanted to acquire Ryan O'Reilly as a facilitator. They wanted to be that third team to make the money work and get a pick or a prospect back for taking on however many thousands of dollars of this cap hit like the Minnesota Wild did. And I believe Minnesota took on like $75,000. The only reason this didn't happen for the Canadiens, they don't have the cap space to make it work because they have so many people on the injured list right now that are affecting their cap space right now. And that's a problem. But it also presents what I look at as opening up the trade deadline now. If the Canadiens aren't going to be dealing their guys as much, if they can ship some of them out even at lower prices, but act as a facilitator in other trades and acquire bits and pieces from there, I can't help but think that could also lead to a similar total haul in terms of value. You're probably not going to get first and seconds for a good number of these players, even as well as they are playing right now. I don't see that happening. but acting as a facilitator and getting AHL prospects to help buoy the Rocket, because Harvey Pinard, Ylonen, potentially Alex Belzile are not going back down to the Rocket outside of a paper transaction, I believe. That's just not a thing that I think is going to happen because they're playing so well in the lineup right now. My question is now too, are the Canadiens going to operate using some third teams as well? Like, could the Canadiens be a facilitator in a trade that sends Patrick Kane somewhere or Timo Meier somewhere, and they acquire bits and pieces to facilitate that cap hit here for this trade deadline? And I don't see why not. Obviously, the cap is going to be a lot tighter than we thought. We still don't know what's going on with the whole Bally Sports thing, which will affect escrow and everything that goes along with that. There's a lot of questions, but I think the Canadiens, and especially Ken Hughes, who has all this background knowledge as the player agent, is looking at this situation and going, if I can't trade everyone I want to, I can help other people make trades and get what I want and get some picks and whatnot back in that, and then become that, hey, Kent Hughes helped us out. Let's see if we can't help him out there, because the whole GM bubble is, quite frankly, an old boys club. We're trying to make it, not an old boys club, but it is in that regard. And one of the other thoughts is, and I believe this was Habs Links on Twitter who was talking about this, with Ryan O'Reilly off the market, with Sean Monahan injured, and some of these bigger names maybe not moving like we originally thought. Jonathan Toews is not going anywhere due to his battle with long COVID, which is scary. What about a name like Christian Dvorak? There's a little term left on that contract, but are the Canadiens willing to retain some salary and make this trade work for somebody else, or facilitate through a third party and make this happen and give up like a fifth or something and help this happen? It feels like Kent Hughes is going to come up with something creative going into this trade deadline here. And he's going to have to, because unfortunately the cap space isn't there. Everybody's injured. And which leads to its entire other discussion is, what in the hell is going on with all these injuries? Armia was sick tonight. That happens. You cannot control that. You cannot control illness. You cannot control biology. So when I look at things here, I'm wondering how creative Kent Hughes can get here. The AHL prospects pool is getting thin here because the bigger names are called up and are sticking right now. And that next wave of CHL and guys from Europe are not quite available yet. We assume Emil Heineman, who signed his entry-level deal, will be here as soon as Leksand is done with their SHL playoff run. Adam Engstrom might make the trip over whenever Rogel is done, whenever that may be. I'm not a big, deep European prospects expert or European teams expert. We will have Patrick Bexell on frequently as we lead up into the draft and as these seasons come to a close here. But sure, they might come over. Frolunda's out of the SHL playoffs, I believe. You have to wonder, is Frederick Disho going to come in and give them a 3-goalie tandem in Montreal, in Laval? I think he has to be here by March 1st is the deadline. I will clarify that with Patrick. I feel like this is going to be an untraditional trade deadline for Kent Hughes. He's going to have to get creative because the cap situation's not good through no fault of his own. And there's just a lot of juggling up in the air right now. You've got LTIR guys. You've got guys who are on IR, might be returning soon. You have guys that you don't know. We don't know what's up with Joel Edmondson. We don't know what's up with Sean Monahan. Are we going to pass through the deadline and then they just go done for the year, shut down? I'm hoping we have answers on that. The not knowing makes me think that something is brewing, though, and I don't quite know what it is. It could be anybody, save for a select number of names on this team that I would go, okay, that makes sense. When Armia left this game and there wasn't any definitive injury or anything else, we truly thought that, hey, maybe he's getting traded mid-game. Maybe they might Camilleried him. That wasn't the case, but it's a creative approach to it. And that's kind of what we're looking for here. That is going to wrap up today's episode here at Locked On Canadiens. As always, thank you for following. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you for following on Twitter at LO_Canadiens. Thank you for subscribing wherever you get your daily podcasts. Thank you for listening, tuning in, interacting. Laura will be here recording Wednesday night, special prospects episode, and she will have the mailbag on Thursday night as I prepare to head out of the country. This is the last episode I will be on, barring any insane trades in the next 2 days. So I will be on vacation for a week. I will see you all when I get back. I promise. I will be here for the trade deadline and all the fun and insanity that entails. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and listening, watching, whatever. We will see you all next time.